Good Monday morning. I'm Joe Fryer.
And I'm Savannah Sellers. Right now on Morning News Now, about face. This morning, Capitol Hill bracing for what could be another bombshell testimony in the January 6 hearings. Top Trump ally Steve Bannon now telling the House committee he is willing to testify after months of defiance. We'll tell you about the change of heart from former President Trump's close advisor and the one condition Bannon is insisting on. Executive decision, new developments in the fight over abortion rights in America. This morning, President Biden considering a public health emergency declaration to free up federal funding for abortion access.
So my ultimate goal is to reinstate Roe v. Wade as a national law by passing it in the United States Congress, and I'll sign it the moment that happens.
More on the president's plan, plus the mixed response as the country grapples with life after Roe. Saving the sequoias happening now, a dangerous firefight underway in the famed Yosemite National Park. This morning, crews battling against extreme heat and high winds as the flames inch closer to the renowned giant sequoia trees. We're near the fire lines with the latest on the conditions. And special delivery, a heartwarming story involving two parents-to-be who mistakenly sent a baby shower invite to a stranger thousands of miles away, how their accidental evite turned into a unique friendship. I love those kinds of stories when the invitation is followed through upon and then something special happens.
Exactly,
after.
exactly.
It's
Looking
very
forward
cool
to that.
See. Yeah, we'll bring you that later this hour. We begin, though, with the latest on the January 6th insurrection hearings.
After a half a dozen hearings over the last few weeks, the committee will hold its final two hearings this week. The first will be tomorrow, and it will focus on possible ties between Trump associates and right-wing extremists. And in a surprise move over the weekend, Steve Bannon, one of former President Trump's closest allies, reversed course. He's now offering to testify, but only if it's live and in public. Bannon's about face comes after former President Trump said he would waive executive protections for Bannon's testimony. For more on all this, we want to bring in NBC News legal analyst Danny Savalos. Danny, good morning to you. So we know Steve Bannon was just weeks away from standing trial for contempt of Congress after months of stonewalling the committee. So if he does testify, could that contempt charge go away, or does that depend on how much he cooperates?
It shouldn't, because there are two kinds of contempt, civil and criminal. Bannon's charged with criminal. The idea behind criminal is punishing someone for something they did in the past, just like all other crime. Civil contempt, on the other hand, is designed to force you to comply with a court's directive. If he's charged with civil contempt, that means the DOJ takes the view that he already committed the sin, and by complying now, he doesn't correct it. Just like in crimes, if you rob a bank and you're charged with it, you can't go back and return the money and expect not to get a jail sentence.
Expect more of this Bannon situation to unfold in coming days. I want to ask you about what's next. The second to last hearing, that's set for tomorrow. The committee says it's going to focus on how the mob came together, spotlighting right-wing extremist groups and any connections they might have to Trump allies. Oath Keeper founder Stuart Rhodes wants to testify before the January 6th committee, but he also says only if it's in a live setting with his lawyers present, similar to the terms that were presented by Steve Bannon. We know these hearings are unprecedented, but what are the risks either for the committee or for Bannon and Rhodes in pushing for public testimony here?
Yeah, there is no way the committee strategically would allow Stuart Rhodes, or Bannon for that matter, to testify live without a net and without prior sworn deposition testimony. I mean, even at trial, you get someone's deposition transcript so you can bash them over the head with it figuratively if they testify inconsistently. What Rhodes and Bannon almost surely want, and I'm guessing, is that they can testify with no prior deposition transcript, no locked-in testimony, and they can say anything. They can figuratively napalm the proceedings. The committee doesn't want that. This is a one-sided affair. It's a grand jury proceeding in that it's a one-sided show. The committee is only presenting evidence that they know already exists, or they know what the witness is going to say. This kind of X factor, they don't want any part of that.
And we've seen just how tightly choreographed these hearings have been so far. Now, Bannon is not the only person in the former president's orbit who's now agreed to speak. Former White House counsel Pat Cipollone, he spent 8 hours talking to the committee on Friday. This follows that explosive testimony from former White House aide Cassidy Hutchinson. Let's play some of what she said, then we'll talk on the other side.
Mr. Cipollone and I had a brief private conversation where he said to me, We need to make sure that this doesn't happen. This would be legally a terrible idea for us. Mr. Cipollone said something to the effect of, please make sure we don't go up to the Capitol, Cassidy. Keep in touch with me. We're going to get charged with every crime imaginable. Pat was concerned it would look like we were obstructing justice or obstructing the Electoral College count.
So after what happened Friday, committee members say Cipollone did not contradict any previous witnesses' testimony. If that's the case, help us understand, why would his testimony following Hutchins' testimony be so important here?
Because what are the odds that Pat Cipollone only told Cassidy Hutchinson, a relatively lower-level aide, that, hey, we're going to get charged with every crime imaginable? The committee is guessing that's a very low percentage, and that Cipollone probably said something more damaging to Trump, to other people in the Trump circle, including possibly Trump himself. Unless, I guess it's theoretically possible that Cipollone was running down a hallway, shouted, we're going to get charged to Cassidy Hutchinson, and never breathed a word of it to anybody else ever, ever, ever. That seems pretty unlikely, and I think the committee knows that. Cipollone is the kind of witness that the committee wants. He's expressed in the past, at least according to one witness's testimony, some concern, and they're going to get his testimony and his interview first, lock it in, then ask a choreographed series of questions at a hearing, most likely.
Danny Zabalos, thanks for helping us break it all down this morning. We appreciate it.
Now, staying in Washington in the ongoing fight over abortion rights, President Biden said Sunday he's considering declaring a public health emergency to free up federal resources to promote abortion access.
That's something I'm asked the folks, the medical people in the administration to look at, whether I have the authority to do that and what impact that would have. So my ultimate goal is to reinstate Roe v. Wade as a national law by passing it in the United States Congress, and I'll sign it the moment that happens.
NBC News correspondent Maura Barrett joins us now from Washington. Hey, Maura, good morning. So this move's been pushed by abortion rights advocates. Comes the weekend protests, as weekend protests are demanding the president to take action. First, let's listen to some of that.
Yeah, I mean, to just put it in words, what we have going on is a massive human rights violation in our country, and he's not responding to that level.
It just isn't enough. Like, he's making a political move when he could have codified Roe the moment he went into office, and he didn't.
Is this consideration a result of that pressure? What do you make of that?
Yeah, Savannah, over the weekend, there was that huge crowd outside the White House, and there was women's marches across the country as well. This was stemming from frustration from President Biden's executive action that he signed into order on Friday, which protected access to FDA medication, abortion, contraception, the right to travel between states if you're seeking an abortion. But people there saying that they don't think it goes far enough. And so when President Biden was in Rehoboth Beach this weekend, I was traveling with the president, and he was asked if he had a message to these protesters, and you saw him respond there, talking about the idea of a public health emergency declaration. But he also said, keep protesting. We need your voices to be heard, because he's also warned that if there isn't votes in November, come the midterms, for more Democrats in Congress, he's really concerned that Republicans will place a federal ban on abortion into law. And so while he said he's considering this public health emergency, this is something that could potentially open up federal funding. But the administration has said that this isn't going to be the necessary first step they're taking, because it doesn't open up that much legal authority. The White House instead saying the actions that they did take on Friday was the most immediate and effective that they're working on right now.
So, Maura, let's talk about how this would work, because, I mean, those remarks do come as some White House officials have conceded that declaring a public health emergency isn't a great option. So how would it work, and what is the administration saying about concerns?
Well, it's something that the president only has so much power in his executive orders, his executive actions. In terms of codifying Roe v. Wade into law, that's something that Congress has to do, and we know that there's not enough votes right now in Congress. So that's why you see the president pushing so much towards the November midterms, but that's why we're also seeing that frustration from protesters. Progressives are also pushing the president, in addition to the public health emergency declaration, to pack the court with with more liberal judges. The White House says they're not going to do that. And they've also suggested for abortion services to be available on federal lands. But Karine Jean-Pierre, the press secretary, has warned that could have dangerous ramifications for those that are traveling out of state doing so on federal lands because they could be prosecuted. Savannah.
And more quickly, before I let you go, I want to ask you about the president's big overseas trip that's coming up this time to the Middle East. In an op-ed in the Washington Post Sunday, the president defended visiting Saudi Arabia. He's previously denounced the Saudi monarchy as a pariah. What do we know about this trip and the White House's response?
Well, previously on the campaign trail, then candidate Biden had said he would make Saudi Arabia a pariah and make them pay the price after the murder of U.S. journalist Jamal Khashoggi, which was organized by Saudi officials. And so that's why he's getting all of this criticism. But in that op-ed that he published over the weekend, he maintained that his idea for human rights and fundamental freedoms is something that he considers in every trip abroad. He instead said that the relationship with the Middle East, with Saudi Arabia, is very important with the U.S. right now, that it's more stable and secure than it was under the Trump administration. And he maintains that building up this relationship would help tame Russian aggression and ideally outcompete China. And so this is something that he thinks will help move forward with Saudi Arabia. And of course, the Saudis control the global oil supply right now as they chair OPEC, which regulates oil. And so when we're talking about gas prices, this is something that will be top of mind for the president as he goes abroad this week.
All right, Maura Barrett, thank you so much.
New details are emerging about the suspect accused of killing former Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe. A wake was held today as Japan mourns its longest-serving leader, who was shot twice on Friday while on the campaign trail. Secretary of State Antony Blinken met with Japan's current Prime Minister earlier today in Tokyo and expressed his condolences.
I shared with our Japanese colleagues the sense of loss, the sense of shock that we all feel, the American people feel, at this horrific tragedy and killing. We saw in him something rare, a man of vision who's had the ability to realize that vision. But mostly, I came at the president's behest because more than allies, we're friends. And when a friend is hurting, other friends show up.
Local journalist Kaori Njoji joins us now. Kaori, as we mentioned when we spoke with you last Friday, I mean, shootings like this are incredibly rare in Japan. 3 days have now passed. What is the mood like there, and what kind of preparations are being made now for Abe's funeral?
Well, Joe, I spent the day at Zojoji Temple, which is where the wake was being held. And, on the surface, I think things are returning back to normal. But as the hearse carrying the body of Shinzo Abe arrived in the afternoon to this temple, the people looking on paused and put their hands together. And there was a steady stream of people. Local people putting flowers down, laying flowers down to try and, convey the sense of condolences that they have towards the slain Prime Minister Shinzo Abe. The wake itself is a family affair, but the Prime Minister, political heavyweights, industry titans will be in attendance, and they will be there during the funeral, on Tuesday. I mean, just a side note, this temple, it's called Zojoji, but this powerful shoguns from the 17th and 18th century were buried there. And I think it's kind of fitting that they chose this temple in central Tokyo because Shinzo Abe was always called the shadow shogun of the Liberal Democratic Party, even 2 years after he resigned as the prime minister.
Kaori, I do want to ask you about the suspect over the weekend. We got some new information about the suspect and his alleged motives. Walk us through what police there are saying and what we can expect now from the investigation here.
Well, what really stood out to me in terms of new detail coming out today is a news conference by the Unification Church. Remember when we talked on Friday, the police had told us that the suspect had said that he held a grudge against an institution. At that time, the police were not giving us a whole lot more detail. But now we know that the suspect's mother belonged to the Unification Church. This is according to the Japan branch, the head of the Japan Japan branch of the Unification Church. They didn't go into detail into how much money the mother may have given to the church, but rumors are swirling that that could have been the reason why there was why the suspect said that his family went into financial ruin. And I think that is the most poignant detail that we got from surrounding this suspect today. He's in the hands of the prosecutors. We know that there was no direct link between any political motive, I should say, from the suspect had in making the shooting. But I think the biggest detail that we got today was that his mother belonged to the Unification Church.
As we mentioned, Abe was on the campaign trail and his party was triumphant in this election. Cowrie, thanks so much for your reporting. We do appreciate it.
It's been 1 week since the deadly shooting at the 4th of July parade in Highland Park, Illinois, where 7 people were killed and dozens more were injured. NBC News correspondent Kathy Park brings us the latest as the community slowly picks up the pieces.
Residents of Highland Park are taking their community back days after the deadly July 4th shooting. The barricades and police tape replaced by signs of resilience and recovery. Their new motto, Highland Park Strong, seen at every turn.
We're not going to be held down.
The doors are back open at some businesses, while others are still cleaning up.
It hit a couple of spots right there.
Including this popular pancake house, pierced by the gunman's bullets.
This is where the bullet holes ended up. Even the awning out there's got a hole.
Like right. We met Nicole Polaric outside the restaurant, the same spot where she watched the parade go by with her family. She took this photo of the packed street minutes before the massacre.
Being back here right now is a reminder of just how close the gunfire was.
How has this moment changed you?
I've now joined a group of mothers all across this country who have lost something, and it's just not okay.
Young children becoming a source of strength, while 8-year-old Cooper Roberts begins his long road to recovery after being shot and paralyzed from the waist down. His classmates spent the day raising money for their friend. A slice of Americana shattered on the day celebrating our independence, but forever united as a healing becomes a community effort. Kathy Park, NBC News, Highland Park, Illinois.
A wildfire at Yosemite National Park is burning out of control this morning and threatening the iconic giant sequoias there. Fire crews are battling the flames on foot and by air, trying to contain the flames, but hot, dry conditions are making the job difficult. And park officials are keeping a close eye on the flames as they move closer to the sequoia trees of Mariposa Grove.
Some of the oldest trees that there's trees that are 2,000 years old. They're massive giants when you stand next to them. Everybody's been training and preparing for this, and that's what everyone is here to do, fight that fire.
NBC News national correspondent Miguel Almaguer is there for us this morning. Miguel, what is the latest on the wildfire and the fight to get it under control?
Well, Joe, this firefight is still very active. We were on scene yesterday about a mile down the road from here. That's where there's active fire. We saw hundreds of firefighters on the ground trying to protect those iconic sequoia trees. As you mentioned, some of them can be 2,000 to 3,000 years old here. So crews are mainly, though, fighting this fire from the air. The fire is burning in fairly remote areas that have been difficult to reach. Here's what Park Ranger Scott Getteman has told us.
These firefighters are incredibly skilled and are going into areas where they're doing everything from falling trees to suppressing fire to cutting fire line, and we're using a variety of methods. We're really relying more on water and the helicopter drops and from the ground.
So the firefight here on the ground does continue, Joe. We're expecting really hot weather here today. It'll be difficult for firefighters as they get ready for yet another day on the front lines, Joe.
And specifically when it comes to protecting those ancient sequoias, what are some of the steps fire crews are taking to try and protect them?
Well, for the most part, they're trying to clear out the underbrush around these massive sequoias. As you know from your own experience, Joe, of being on the front lines here, that underbrush, when it's thick and heavy, it can easily catch trees on fire that are in this area, and that can jump from treetop to treetop. That's a major concern here. And around some of the larger trees here, some of the most iconic trees in this area, they've actually set up a remote sprinkler system to keep the ground saturated in the area. That's been a major effort as well. Here's Park Ranger Scott Getteman yet again.
And so far, we have not had any giant sequoias burn, which is wonderful. We've done a lot of preventative measures. We've done prescribed burning over the years. We've done a lot of the fuels treatment.
So again, the good news, no sequoia trees have been lost here. There's about 500 trees in the Mariposa Grove, which is just about a mile down the road from where we're standing now. There's another 100 trees in the national park itself. But again, no trees lost. Those 600 still standing strong today, Joe.
And Miguel, as you know well, firefighters can do what they can do, but they depend so much on the weather. So what does the weather look like in the coming days? Could it help or could it hurt the fight?
Well, it's going to be hot and very dry out here, so that's not good news there. If there is any good news in the forecast, it's that we're not expecting, and we haven't yet seen, very windy conditions. Fire, as you know, can be really catastrophic when the winds are kicking up in this area. For the most part, the winds have been fairly calm, a piece of good news, but the temperatures could easily reach the triple digits. That'll slow firefighters down on the ground as the aerial assault here really takes shape over the next few days, Joe.
All right, Miguel Almaguer, stay safe. Thank you.
And with that, let's get a check on your morning news now weather.
NBC's Michelle Grossman joins us with that. Hey, Michelle, good morning.
Hey there, guys. Happy Monday. And as Miguel said, we are looking at hot, dry weather in the west and a lot in the southwest and south central states. Once again, temperatures climbing into the upper 90s and triple digits once again. So 29 million Americans at risk for some sort of heat alert, whether it's a heat advisory, excessive heat warning. That's in your hot pink. You can see it extending from parts of the northwest into the southwest, the central and southern plains, and then parts of Louisiana as well. So that's what we're going to watch in terms of the heat. We're still toasty, temperatures in the triple digits. Yesterday, Austin reached a high of 110. That tied a record for the month of July. So we're looking at 100 degrees in Oklahoma City today. It will feel like 102 once you factor in that humidity, feeling like 104 in San Antonio, and it will feel like 108 degrees in Houston. That's going to continue tomorrow. Lots of red, lots of pink on this map here because we are looking at temperatures soaring into the triple digits once again in Dallas and Austin. It's going to feel like 100 in Birmingham despite that 93-degree temperature because we're adding in that high humidity. And that heat's going to expand to the east, so New York City, you're into the 90s by Wednesday. Raleigh, same story, 93 degrees, and into the upper 80s in Atlanta. We're also watching the Gulf. We have a area of low pressure. It's super slow. It's kind of lingering and meandering across the coast. And we're going to see heavy rainfall. We're going to see gusty winds as well. Could pick up some tropical attributes too. So we're going to watch this over the next several days. Either way, we're looking at heavy rainfall. Scattered rain tomorrow from Texas to the Carolinas. We could see 2 inches per hour. And then as we go throughout Wednesday, the ground's so saturated. We have been watching rain here for the past week and a half. We're going to continue to watch rain here. So we're looking at a flooding risk. We're also looking at anywhere from 3 to 5 inches of rainfall. That's especially along the coastline of Louisiana into Alabama and also Mississippi. Back to you guys.
Welcome back. The trial of WNBA star Brittney Griner is expected to resume later this week in Russia. On Friday, she pleaded guilty to drug smuggling charges.
Over the weekend, Griner's fellow players paid tribute to her at the WNBA All-Star Game. NBC News foreign correspondent Megan Fitzgerald has the latest.
Welcome to WNBA All-Star.
The WNBA kicking off the All-Star Game while honoring one of its biggest stars.
And selected as an honorary All-Star starter, Brittney Griner. We are BG.
Her wife, Sherelle, sitting courtside with a message.
I'm just so grateful that everybody in this arena is actually still remembering my wife.
Brittney Griner, thousands of miles away, locked in a Russian prison, but present in this arena.
February 17th.
A video documenting her journey from February until now, playing at halftime.
And we just need her home.
We need to get her back home. She deserves to be home.
We are BG will not be exhausted.
And players wearing jerseys with Griner's name and number 42. Griner was detained at a Moscow airport for allegedly having vape cartridges containing cannabis oil. Griner pleading guilty late last week.
It was unintentionally brought to Russia because she was in a hurry as she was packing.
Her attorney hoping that plea expedites the process, getting her closer to possibly being released, as the Kremlin says they won't discuss next steps until the trial is over. In a phone call with Griner's wife, President Biden and Vice President Harris assuring her they're doing everything they can to get Griner home.
Next step in this journey is actually to support our administration and making sure that they have our support to do whatever is necessary to bring her back home.
Family and fans waiting and hoping for her return. Megan Fitzgerald, NBC News.
More international headlines now in South Africa. Authorities are investigating 2 deadly mass shootings within hours of each other.
Claudio Lavanga joins us now from Rome with that and more. Hey, Claudio, good morning.
Good morning, guys. Yes, the police in South Africa are trying to establish whether there is a link between the 2 shootings, even if they took place in different cities far away from each other in South Africa. Well, they took place, or they were carried out on the same night, and both in bars full of people. Also, in both occasions, the gunmen appear to have picked their victims at random, killing in total 19 people. And let's move to Sri Lanka, where the Prime Minister's office confirmed that the country's president and Prime Minister will resign after angry protesters stormed the official residence of both leaders. Sri Lankans have been calling for them to step down for months after the country plunged into a severe economic crisis with shortages of food, fuel, and medicine. And let's end this short tour of the world on the grass of Wimbledon, where tennis star Novak Djokovic won the tournament for the 7th time, beating Nick Kyrgios from Australia. Before kissing the well-deserved cup, Djokovic consoled Kyrgios by telling him, "You'll be back." But Kyrgios said that Wimbledon and the final was so tiring that he's not so sure he's going to give it a second shot. Guys,
I think he will be back. It was a fun one to watch. So we'll see. Claudio, thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
A Texas woman's traffic stop is creating a new debate over what is considered a life following the reversal of Roe versus Wade.
Yeah, the woman was 34 weeks pregnant when she was pulled over and given a ticket for driving in the HOV lane alone. But she says she considers her unborn baby a passenger.
He starts peeking around. He's like, "Is it just you?" And I said, "No, there's 2 of us." And he's like, "Well, where's the other person?" And I went, "Right here."
Joining us now for more on this is NBC News reporter Callan Rosenblatt and NBC News legal contributor and analyst Barbara McQuaid. Good morning to you both. Callan, I'll start with you. Walk us through just what happened here and what the woman's reaction was after she was stopped by the police.
Yeah, so Dallas County Sheriff's Department says that, when someone's driving in an HOV lane, essentially they're just scanning to make sure that there are passengers aside from the driver. They saw Brandy's car. They pulled her over because they didn't see any other passengers. And as she said, she mentioned, I'm pregnant. I am 34 weeks pregnant. And this was just days after Roe v. Wade was overturned. She said, under the law, this is a person that's driving in my vehicle. And essentially the sheriff said, I don't want to deal with this. You can deal with this in court. But they said the passenger has to be outside of the body. She argued, according to Texas law, no, it doesn't. And so here we are with this debate, about whether or not her unborn fetus counts as another passenger in her vehicle.
And Callan, have we heard from the Dallas County Sheriff Department in response to the traffic stop?
So I reached out to the Dallas County Sheriff Department. I have not heard back, and I have not seen them comment on this. However, we're seeing lots of reports saying that while the penal code recognizes an unborn child as a person, the Texas Department of Transportation has no language recognizing an unborn child as a person. So this case really could sort of shake up how, the Texas Department of Transportation views unborn fetuses or unborn children. And it also could create language. But, as of right now, there's no language to say anything. But I've reached out to both of those departments, have not heard back yet.
So, Callan, what are the woman's next steps? Is she planning on trying to fight the ticket?
Well, her ticket was more than $200. The sheriffs and deputies on scene basically told her, if you fight this, it'll probably get dismissed. But she is planning to go to court and fight this on the basis that she believes her unborn daughter is a passenger and is a child. And as I mentioned, there are some lawyers and some legal experts who say, this could set a precedent in the future for other pregnant people to say that their unborn children are also passengers, and they could allow them to drive in the HOV or carpool lanes.
Lucky for us, we've got one of those legal experts here. Barbara, let's bring you in light of the Supreme Court's recent ruling. I mean, we're sort of in uncharted territory. Does she have a case, do you think?
I think she does. Now, if you live in the world of normal lawyers who look not only at the language of a statute, but also the intent of the legislature that passed it, you would correctly recognize that passenger means a person who occupies a seat in the car. The purpose of these HOV lanes is to reduce congestion on roads. It is so that someone might say, rather than drive my own car, I will ride with you. That way, there are fewer cars on the road, and they give them the priority of riding in those HOV lanes. However, we live in a time when judges pretend to use this word of textualism, that we can only use the text, and we can only use the text as it was defined at the time the law was passed. And so if you look at that, and they say the word passenger, and they say, well, passenger, of course, also means children, and also means unborn children. And so even though the law doesn't say it and didn't contemplate it, I think if you had an activist judge who was pushing this pro-life agenda, they could find it. And not only could they find it in these cases, they could then bootstrap it, and lawyers in other kinds of cases could say that life begins at conception and that any unborn child is a human, and therefore any kind of abortion or even a miscarriage could be a murder, and would investigate cases for that. So it's why we have precedent in the law. It's why we don't allow activist judges to change legal definitions midstream, because we rely on definitions when we're enacting other laws. But this kind of novel argument is the kind of thing that could really change the landscape.
So, Barbara, quickly, I mean, could this motivate Texas to try and modify its HOV lane laws, and who is allowed to drive in that lane?
Sure. I think now that Dobbs is the law of the land, I think that there's all kinds of freedom for states to open up the floodgates and decide and define life and person, even as those who are simply fetuses.
Callan and Barbara, thank you both very much. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
International headlines now. In South Africa, authorities are investigating 2 deadly mass shootings within hours of each other.
Claudio Labanga is with us from Rome with that and more. Hey, Claudio.
Good morning, guys. Yes, the police in South Africa are trying to establish whether there is a link between the 2 shootings, even if they took place in different cities far away from each other in South Africa. Well, they took place, or they were carried out on the same night, and both in bars full of people. Also, in both occasions, the gunmen appear to have picked their victims at random, killing in total 19 people. And let's move to Sri Lanka, where the Prime Minister's office confirmed that the country's president and Prime Minister will resign after angry protesters stormed the official residence of both leaders. Sri Lankans have been calling for them to step down for months after the country plunged into a severe economic crisis with shortages of food, fuel, and medicine. And let's end this short tour of the world on the grass of Wimbledon, where tennis star Novak Djokovic won the tournament for the 7th time, beating Nick Kyrgios from Australia. Before kissing the well-deserved cup, Djokovic consoled Kyrgios by telling him, "You'll be back." But Kyrgios said that Wimbledon and the final was so tiring that he's not so sure he's going to give it a second shot. Guys,
I think he will be back. It was a fun one to watch. So we'll see. Claudio, thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Now, the arrest of a New York bodega worker who claims he was defending himself when he got into a violent altercation that left a man dead has drawn some outrage. The bodega clerk's supporters say he acted in self-defense. So why is he not charged with murder? NBC News correspondent Stephen Romo has the story.
A raging debate in New York City continues surrounding a deadly stabbing in a bodega. In surveillance video obtained by NBC New York, you can see 35-year-old Austin Simon behind the bodega counter last Friday night. He apparently pushes Jose Alba, who was working there. We don't know what transpired before that video starts, and it has no sound. But moments later, a fight. Alba grabs a knife and stabs Simon in the neck and chest at least 5 times, according to charging documents provided by the Manhattan District Attorney. Investigators say it started when Simon's girlfriend's card was declined as she tried to pay for a bag of chips. She told investigators she got into a verbal dispute with Alba. Then he reached over the counter to grab the chips. That's when she went to get Simon, who confronted Alba. Bodegas like this are an integral part to so many communities in New York. Some people stop by several times a week, so it's having a big impact on the area. You can see this small memorial here that's been set up outside the business. Simon was pronounced dead later that evening. Efforts to reach his family were unsuccessful. Alba is facing second-degree murder charges, but his lawyers and those who know him say it was self-defense.
To me, I know that man personally. He lives in my building. He's the kindest man I ever met. If he says it's self-defense, it is, to me.
The Manhattan DA's office telling NBC News, we are continuing to review the evidence and the investigation is ongoing.
Right. Are you happy? Are you happy to be back, Mr. Alba?
There's outrage from some over the charges. Alba's bail was originally set at $250,000, and he was held at Rikers Island for almost a week. Alba's bail was eventually lowered to $50,000. He's now out on bond, not taking questions as he's returned home. The city's mayor, Eric Adams, who ran and won his election on an anti-crime platform, visited the bodega and later commented on the case.
And I'm not going to second guess the district attorney for his actions. With that said, my heart goes out for that hard-working, honest New Yorker that was doing his job in his place of business, where a person came in and went behind the counter and attacked him.
Those who work behind the counter across the city now on edge.
Because to be behind the counter and you don't know what's going to happen to you, you don't know who's going to come to you and do something against you because you don't know which one is which. You don't know who's the customer now. You don't know who's your enemy.
We're saddened what happened to this gentleman that lost his life, but he also came into our bodega, came into our space and tried to threaten the life of one of our members. And our members did what they had to do, defend their bodegas.
Our thanks to Stephen Romo for that report. Now, following his release, Alba is required to surrender his passport, remain in New York City, and wear a monitoring device.
Welcome back. It appears Elon Musk's highly publicized deal to buy Twitter could be no more.
Yeah, the billionaire announced Friday that he now wants to terminate his $44 billion deal to buy the social media platform. According to a letter sent by one of his lawyers to Twitter, Musk cites alleged contract breaches as the reason he's backing out. NBC News correspondent Stephanie Goss joins us now with the latest on this. Hey, Steph, good morning. So first, just tell us about these breaches that he's referring to. What's he saying?
All right. So he had his attorney write to the SEC a letter that said that Twitter has not been forthcoming about their bots. These are these fake accounts. Now, that was one of the parts of the deal. Elon Musk wanted Twitter to tell him exactly what percentage of their accounts were fake. They said around 5%. He said, I don't think it's 5%. I think it's a lot more than that. And why does that matter? Because advertisers want real accounts. Advertisers want real eyeballs.
As of late, Elon Musk had been hinting at, and that's to put it mildly, some discomfort with this deal and everything that was going on. But we've also heard from people within Twitter also uncomfortable with Elon Musk taking over. Are we getting any reaction to them now that this is happening?
Yeah, I mean, I think keep in mind, this is a little bit of business brinkmanship, and nothing is a done deal at this point. And reactions have been mixed. There are a lot of people on Twitter who think Elon Musk coming on board would be great, that he would, blow the thing up. He is an advocate of free speech, that he would promote that he even said he would bring Donald Trump back on board. So there certainly are a bunch of people that would applaud that. He has 100 million Twitter followers, and he actually responded to this fight on Twitter over the weekend, saying he's going to hold Twitter's feet to the fire on this issue of bots.
So this could be this potential long, lengthy legal battle here. Is there any world in which the outcome is that Elon can be forced to pay for this and continue on?
Yes, absolutely. Twitter has basically said, we're not going to let you walk away. We are going to bring you into court, and you are going to have to prove, essentially, that this business is not what you thought it was just a few months ago, which is a high bar. The judge could say to him, no, you definitely have to buy it. But also keep in mind, Twitter's stock price has dropped more than 30% since this deal was announced. And there's a lot of speculation that because of that economic climate, that is what's triggered this business brinkmanship, if you will. And what he's really after here is a different deal altogether.
Different price, I think.
Yeah, and if it goes in the court, I feel like it's not going to be resolved quickly. But we will have to wait see.
No. Yep.
All right, Stephanie Gons, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
More financial headlines now. Gas prices are finally coming down a bit. So what do analysts expect going forward?
CNBC's Silvana Henao joins us with that and other news this morning. Hey, Silvana.
Hey guys, good morning. Yeah, so prices at the pump are finally pulling back a bit. The average for regular unleaded falling 19 cents over the past 2 weeks to $4.86 a gallon. Now the move comes as the cost of crude oil also falls. Analysts do say assuming oil doesn't shoot up from here, drivers could see gas drop another 10 to 20 cents. Gas prices are down 24 cents over the past month, but are still $1.66 higher than they were a year ago. A massive leak of documents shows Uber allegedly used illegal methods as it expanded worldwide from 2013 to 2017. The report, released by an international group of investigative journalists, alleges Uber defied laws by using stealth technology, exploited violence against drivers to pressure politicians, and lobbied governments, while co-founder and former CEO Travis Kalanick led the company. Kalanick was replaced in 2017 following a wave of scandals. And in a statement, Uber says it won't make excuses for past behavior that isn't in line with its present values. And Thor is still bringing the hammer down. Marvel's Thor: Love and Thunder topping the weekend box office with $143 million, according to ComScore. That's the best debut for the franchise. It's also the 6th movie this year to top $100 million in its opening weekend, and the first time since 2018 new films posted 9-figure openings in back-to-back weeks, guys.
Wow, some big summer movies.
I mean, the blockbusters are back, which is great to see. Silvana, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Guys.
Let's stay on the economy for a moment. On Friday, we learned the U.S. added more than 370,000 jobs in the month of June. That was a number far greater than what analysts had expected.
So what does that number mean for the economy, both now and in the near future? Caleb Silver joins us now. He's the editor-in-chief of Investopedia. Caleb, good morning. So let's just kind of dive into these numbers. Is this latest jobs report a real indicator of the state of the economy? And then what does it tell us about what we could see in the second half of the year?
Yeah, good to be with you. And the labor market has really been the strongest part of the economy going back for the past year and a half, 2 years. There's still a lot of jobs available, but we're 98% of the way back from the jobs we lost during the pandemic. If you compare us to 2019, that's pretty good. In the private sector, you're almost 100% of the way back. There's still a lot of job openings, of course, in travel and leisure and hospitality and in government jobs. But the Federal Reserve, when they think about raising interest rates and cooling down inflation, they're always looking at the health of the labor market. And the U.S. is in full employment. That's somewhere between 3 and 4% unemployment. We're at 3.6% unemployment. That's really a full labor market right now. The rest of the economy is starting to look a little bit shaky right now, but the labor market is very strong and there are jobs out there. Wages and raises have been slowing a little bit, but they did rise earlier in the year and last year.
Let's talk about one of our favorite topics when we have you on, which is gas prices, which Silvana also just mentioned. AAA says the national average is down about 34 cents from that all-time high a month ago. So do you think it's going to keep going down, or do you think we could expect another rise or another spike as we approach Labor Day weekend and the end of the summer travel season? Yes, we're talking about the end of summer here already.
No, I don't like that. It's not yet.
Too soon. Hashtag too soon.
Yeah, no kidding.
That said, gas prices are fully dependent on where oil prices are. Oil prices have been steadily falling week after week. A lot of it depends on what happens with Russia's continued invasion of Ukraine. But I also think there's demand destruction out there, and there's fears of a recession. People are fearing a pullback in the coming months or into the beginning of next year. So when you look at oil, which trades in the futures market, people pay for oil way in advance. Prices for oil are really going down month after month, all the way out into December, which probably means gas prices will follow. Gas prices usually go up in the summertime. We travel a lot more. But you know what? The high prices, those over $5 a gallon prices from a month ago, that did a lot of demand destruction. We actually saw less fill-ups, less demand for gasoline when we usually see it going up. The cure for high prices, guys, is high prices, and we're seeing a little demand destruction for gasoline right now.
Caleb, also the housing market. So mortgage rates this past week actually saw their biggest decline since 2008, falling nearly 0.5%. What do you make of that? Is that cause for concern, or do you see that as a blip that potential homebuyers can take advantage of?
Yeah, it's a tough one because interest rates were going up on the 30-year because interest rates from the Federal Reserve, the prime rate was going up. But now there's a little demand destruction there. There's fears of a recession and a pullback, and the labor and the housing market's super tight. There's a lot of housing availability, but really expensive homes above $500,000. So there's not a lot of demand there. That's why you're seeing those mortgage rates tick down, and the fears of a recession and a pullback also pulling those rates down. Not a great sign. Could be an opportunity. It's just such thin inventory for homes in that sweet spot, 250,000 to 500,000.
All right, Caleb, thank you so much as always.
Some serious news this morning for fans of Broadway's Funny Girl. Beanie Feldstein announced last night she is stepping away from her role in the revival earlier than expected. Last month, producers said she and fellow co-star Jane Lynch would depart the show at the end of September. But in Feldstein's post yesterday, she said her decision to move that up came after producers, quote, decided to take the show in a different direction, as she put it. But she did not elaborate any further. Her last performance in the show will now be July 31st. We've reached out to the show's producers for comment. We haven't heard back, but in a social media post, they did tease what they called an exciting cast announcement later today. A lot of drama behind the scenes. I think I saw one person write that what I really want to see is the musical about the behind the scenes of Funny Girl, the musical, as opposed to actually just seeing Funny Girl, the musical.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah. Ooh, wow.
We'll see what
All
happens.
right. Well, yeah.
I have a
waiting
theory,
to hear more
but we'll
there.
see.
Oh, you do? I had a feeling you did.
Yeah.
We'll talk about it later.
All right.
All right. For most new parents, throwing a baby shower is, of course, a great way to get ready for your first child. But when one couple accidentally sent an invitation to the wrong person, they wound up getting a new friend in the process, too. Here's MSNBC anchor Jose Diaz-Balart with more.
Oh, yeah. When Candace Countryman and David Amos, they found out they were expecting their first baby, they couldn't wait to start celebrating. So earlier this year, the Southern California couple sent out evites for a baby shower ahead of daughter Luna's arrival. But one invite accidentally went to the wrong person, a stranger named Angela White, living 2,000 miles away in Indiana.
You ignored it, but not for long.
Not for long. It just kept kind of this gut feeling I was having. There's a reason why I received that text message.
Angela, a busy mom of 4 with a husband in the Army, simply couldn't put it out of her mind. So, guided by her faith and joy for the young family, she spent weeks hand-knitting a cozy baby blanket similar to this one for little Luna.
We have been on the receiving end of kindness before from strangers and other people kind of paying it forward, and I just wanted to do the same thing.
The unexpected gift overwhelming the new parents.
Candace, what kind of touched you about all?
It just was amazing. She could have just ignored the text message.
The special package came with a note, too, reading in part, "I'm sure you're wondering who the heck I am. I received an Evite text message to attend your baby shower." Angela added, "I did feel a tugging in my heart to send you something for your new arrival."
Candace and I both are in tears as we're reading the card, but it was super sweet.
Connected by this new little life, both families are now friends and believe this was much more than just a coincidence.
I'm excited also to share this story with Luna when she's old enough to know about it and know, like, hey, Auntie Angela in Indiana sent you a blanket.
So, David and Candace, what do you want Luna to know?
I think really it's just putting the other people first, is a good thing. And I think that's one thing that we're going to kind of build off of. It's just care and kindness and sleep.
All right, so kindness can go a long way, even all the way across the country. Isn't that funny? She just gets a text, and she's like...
But she said, and sleep at the end there? Yeah. Kindness and sleep can go a long way. Spoken like new parents.
Exactly. And our thanks to Jose Diaz-Balart for that heartwarming story.
That does it for this hour of Morning News Now.
But the news continues right now.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC News app.